A black woman finds a bleeding CEO collapsed on the street, holding 2 newborn babies, 1 boy, 1 girl. But this isn't just a random encounter. The twins aren't just babies. They're the key to a family fortune, and Jackson's life is now in grave danger. As the mystery unfolds, secrets buried deep within his family begin to surface, and the woman who thought she was only helping becomes entangled in a conspiracy that could destroy them both. The truth? It's darker than she ever imagined, and the stakes? Higher than anyone could have guessed. Can they uncover the deadly secrets in time to save the twins, or will their fight for justice cost them everything? And as the danger escalates, who can they trust? Will they survive the truth, or will the conspiracy destroy them all? Tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now, and if this story speaks to you, make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The streetlights cast long shadows across the empty sidewalk as Olivia Daniels made her way home, her feet aching after 12 hours of running between hospital rooms. Her blue scrubs rustled softly with each tired step. The late September air held a slight chill, making her pull her light jacket closer around her shoulders. Her mind wandered back to the elderly patient in room 315, who had finally shown signs of improvement today. A small smile crossed her face as she remembered his granddaughter's tears of joy. These were the moments that made her long shifts worthwhile, even when exhaustion weighed heavily on her shoulders. The quiet residential street was nearly deserted at this hour, with only the occasional car passing by. The row of modest apartment buildings stood like silent sentinels in the growing darkness. Olivia was just about to cross the street when something caught her eye, a figure sitting on the sidewalk ahead. She slowed her pace, her nurse's instincts immediately on alert. The man sat with his back against a brick wall, his expensive suit wrinkled and dirty. But what made her heart skip a beat was what he held in his arms, 2 tiny bundles carefully cradled against his chest. Drawing closer, Olivia could see they were newborns, their small faces peaceful in sleep. The man's head was bowed, his dark hair disheveled, but even in his obviously distressed state, his protective hold on the babies never wavered. "Sir," Olivia called softly, not wanting to startle him or wake the infants. "Are you all right?" The man's head snapped up, revealing bloodshot eyes in a face that spoke of wealth and refinement, now marked by exhaustion and fear. He assessed her quickly, taking in her scrubs and the hospital ID still clipped to her jacket. You're a nurse?" His voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. Olivia nodded, kneeling down several feet away to appear less threatening. "I'm Olivia Daniels. I work at St. Mary's Hospital. Can I help you?" The man swallowed hard, his gaze darting to the shadows between buildings before returning to her face. "Jackson Hayes," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "These are my sister's children. She died this morning." Olivia's heart clenched at the raw pain in his voice. She noticed how his arms tightened protectively around the sleeping twins. "I'm so sorry for your loss," she said gently. Jackson's eyes filled with tears he seemed determined not to shed. "It wasn't natural. Her death, something's wrong. There are people—" He broke off, looking around nervously again. "People who want to hurt them. The twins. I had to get them out." Olivia's nursing training kicked in as she noticed the slight tremor in his hands, the sheen of sweat on his forehead despite the cool evening. The twins appeared well cared for, but Jackson himself showed signs of physical and emotional exhaustion. "How long have you been out here?" she asked, keeping her voice calm and professional. I'm not sure anymore. Hours, maybe." Jackson's shoulders slumped. "I didn't know where to go. They have eyes everywhere." A car turned onto the street, its headlights sweeping across them. Jackson tensed, trying to shield the babies with his body. The car passed without slowing, but Olivia saw the naked fear in his eyes. Making a quick decision, she pulled out her phone. "I'm going to call for help." "No police!" Jackson interrupted sharply, then immediately softened his voice when one of the twins stirred. "Please, I can't trust them. Not yet." "Okay," Olivia said soothingly. "No police. But my apartment is just down the block. You and the babies shouldn't be out here in the cold." Jackson hesitated, clearly torn between his need for help and his fear of trust. "I have a security system," Olivia added gently. "And medical supplies if you need them. The twins should be checked over, make sure they're doing all right." One of the babies chose that moment to wake, letting out a tiny whimper. Jackson looked down at the infant, his expression softening with love and worry. "They haven't eaten in a while," he admitted. "I have formula in the bag, but—" Olivia noticed the designer diaper bag beside him for the first time. "Let me help you," she said, reaching for it slowly. "We can warm up the formula properly at my place." Jackson studied her face for a long moment, as if trying to read her soul. Whatever he saw there must have reassured him, because he finally gave a slight nod. "Okay," he whispered. Standing carefully with the twins secure in his arms, Jackson swayed slightly. Olivia quickly steadied him with a hand on his elbow while shouldering the diaper bag. "It's not far," she assured him, guiding him down the sidewalk. "Just take it slow." They walked carefully, Jackson's steps becoming steadier as they went. Olivia kept a watchful eye on their surroundings, noting how Jackson flinched at every passing car or distant sound. The twins remained remarkably quiet, as if sensing the need for silence. Her apartment building was a modest 4-story structure, with good security and friendly neighbors. Olivia led them through the front door, using her key fob to access the elevator. As they rode up to the 3rd floor, she watched Jackson's reflection in the mirrored walls. His expensive suit was dirty and torn at one knee, as if he'd fallen. Despite his disheveled appearance, there was something inherently dignified about the way he held himself, even now. The elevator doors opened directly into a small hallway. Olivia's apartment was the 2nd door on the right. She unlocked it quickly, ushering Jackson inside before securing all 3 locks behind them. "Here," she said, turning on soft lamps rather than the harsh overhead light. "Sit down before you fall down. Let me see to the twins first, then we'll figure out what you need." Jackson sank onto her comfortable couch, still cradling the babies close. In the better light, Olivia could see they were fraternal twins, a boy and a girl, probably no more than a few weeks old. Both had wisps of dark hair and perfectly formed features that held hints of Jackson's bone structure. "They're beautiful," she said softly, reaching for the diaper bag. "What are their names?" A shadow passed over Jackson's face. My sister hadn't named them yet. She was waiting until... His voice broke, and he had to take several deep breaths before continuing. Until she was sure they were safe. Olivia's heart ached at the pain in his voice, but she kept her movements calm and efficient as she prepared 2 bottles of formula in her kitchen. Her apartment wasn't large, but it was clean and cozy, with soft blues and greens that she hoped would help her unexpected guests feel more secure. "When was the last time you ate or drank anything?" she asked, testing the formula temperature on her wrist. Jackson blinked, as if the question was too complex to process. "I don't remember," he admitted finally. "Okay," Olivia said, bringing the warm bottles over. "First, we feed the little ones. Then you're going to eat something and tell me what's going on. I want to help, but I need to know what we're dealing with." As she helped Jackson position the twins for feeding, their tiny hands curling around the bottles, she saw tears finally spill down his cheeks. He quickly wiped them away, but not before Olivia caught a glimpse of the deep well of grief and fear he was trying to contain. "Thank you," he whispered, watching the babies eat. "I didn't know what to do. I couldn't let them hurt Sarah's children, but I'm not equipped for this. When I saw your scrubs, it felt like a sign, like maybe there was hope after all." Olivia sat beside him, her nurse's trained eyes noting his pallor and the slight shake in his hands. "You're safe here," she said firmly. "All three of you. We'll figure this out together, I promise." The twins continued to feed contentedly, unaware of the drama surrounding them. Outside, the city lights twinkled against the darkening sky, while inside Olivia's apartment, a fragile bubble of safety enclosed 4 souls brought together by fate and desperation. The ambulance's sirens wailed through the night as it pulled away from the curb, carrying Jackson to St. Mary's Hospital. Olivia stood on the sidewalk, the weight of the twins in her arms feeling both precious and terrifying. The little boy stirred, making soft, whimpering sounds that his sister soon echoed. She gently bounced them, her nurse's instincts taking over despite the surreal nature of the situation. "It's okay, little ones," she whispered, though her own heart was racing. "Everything's going to be all right." The next 24 hours passed in a blur of bottle feedings, diaper changes, and worried glances at her phone. Finally, a text from Jackson arrived, telling her his room number and that it was safe to visit. Olivia packed the diaper bag carefully, strapped the twins into the car seats she'd borrowed from her neighbor, and made her way to the hospital. Walking through the familiar corridors felt different this time. Instead of heading to her usual nursing station, she was a visitor, carrying 2 precious bundles toward room 312. She found Jackson propped up in bed, looking better than he had on the street, but still pale beneath his tan. An IV dripped fluids into his arm, and a half-eaten hospital meal sat on the rolling table beside him. His face lit up when he saw the twins. "They're okay?" he asked immediately, reaching out as Olivia brought them closer. "They're perfect," she assured him, helping to settle one baby in each of his arms. "Healthy, eating well, sleeping as much as newborns usually do, which isn't much," she added with a small smile. Jackson's shoulders relaxed slightly as he held them. "Thank you," he said softly. "I know I owe you an explanation." Olivia pulled a chair close to the bed, keeping her voice low. "The doctor said you were severely dehydrated and exhausted. How long were you running?" 3 days, he admitted, his eyes never leaving the twins' faces. "Ever since Sarah." His voice caught. "Ever since my sister died." The pain in his voice made Olivia's heart ache. "I'm so sorry," she said quietly. "Can you tell me what happened?" Jackson took a deep breath, seeming to gather his strength. "My sister was brilliant," he began. "She worked as our family company's chief financial officer. About 6 months ago, she started acting different, nervous, distracted. She told me she'd found something in the books, something that didn't add up. But before she could explain everything, He swallowed hard. "They said it was a car accident. But Sarah was the most careful driver I knew, and she'd just had the twins. She wouldn't have taken risks." Olivia leaned forward, her nursing instincts telling her to monitor Jackson's stress levels, even as her heart went out to him. "You think it wasn't an accident?" "No, it wasn't," he said grimly. "The night before she died, she transferred a huge amount of documents to a secure server and changed her will. Everything she had, including her shares in the company and access to certain accounts, goes to the twins. But they have to survive to their 18th birthday to inherit." The implications hit Olivia like a physical blow. "That's why someone's after them. For money." Jackson nodded, his arms tightening protectively around the sleeping infants. "My family's wealth goes back generations, But Sarah found something. Corruption. Maybe worse. She tried to tell me that our father and uncle, that they'd done terrible things. Now she's dead, and these little ones are all that's left of her. They're also the key to everything she discovered. Olivia watched as the baby girl wrapped her tiny hand around Jackson's finger. Your own family would hurt babies for money. Power corrupts, Jackson said bitterly. I've seen it happen my whole life, but I always believed there were lines they wouldn't cross. I was wrong. He looked up at Olivia, his eyes filled with determination despite his exhaustion. I have to protect them. They're not just Sarah's children, they're her legacy, her way of exposing whatever she found. The weight of the situation settled over Olivia like a heavy blanket. She thought about her comfortable apartment, her ordinary life, and how it had all changed the moment she'd spotted Jackson on that sidewalk. But looking at the twins, so small and vulnerable, she knew she couldn't walk away. What's your plan? She asked quietly. I need time, Jackson replied. Time to recover, to access Sarah's files safely, to figure out who we can trust. The hospital's secure. I have private security I trust watching the floor, but once I'm discharged, they can stay with me, Olivia found herself saying. My apartment building has good security, and no one would think to look for them there. I can take care of them while you do what you need to do. Jackson studied her face intently. Why would you risk this? You don't know me. I'm a nurse, she said simply. I took an oath to help people, and these babies, they deserve a chance. They deserve to be safe and loved just like their mother wanted. Something shifted in Jackson's expression, a softening around his eyes, a slight relaxation of his tense shoulders. I can't ask you to put yourself in danger. You're not asking. I'm offering. Olivia reached out to straighten one of the twins' blankets. Besides, I'm already involved. Better to face whatever's coming together than alone, right? A ghost of a smile touched Jackson's lips. Together, he repeated softly. Then his expression grew serious again. I'll make sure you have everything you need. Formula, diapers, anything else for the babies. And I'll set up a secure way to communicate. No phones except for emergencies. No social media posts about them. Olivia nodded, already mentally rearranging her apartment to accommodate 2 infants. I can take some personal time from work. I have vacation days saved up. I'll cover any lost wages, Jackson said quickly. It's the least I can do, and once I'm out of here— One step at a time, Olivia interrupted gently. Right now, you need to rest and recover. The twins are safe with me, and we'll figure out the next steps when you're stronger. The baby boy chose that moment to wake up, his tiny face scrunching up before letting out a hungry cry. His sister, disturbed by the noise, joined in. Jackson looked momentarily panicked, but Olivia was already reaching for the diaper bag. Here, she said, pulling out 2 prepared bottles. Let me show you how to feed them properly. As she demonstrated the correct holding position and bottle angle, she caught Jackson watching her with an expression of gratitude mixed with something deeper. Trust, perhaps, or hope. Whatever dangers lay ahead, whatever secrets Sarah had discovered, Olivia knew in that moment that she was exactly where she needed to be. The twins gradually quieted as they ate, their little hands curling and uncurling in contentment. Outside the hospital room, the world continued its normal rhythm, unaware of the bonds being formed within, bonds created by circumstance, but strengthened by choice, by compassion, and by the shared determination to protect 2 innocent lives from the darkness that threatened them. The days following Jackson's admission to the hospital fell into a gentle rhythm. Olivia found herself adapting to life with the twins with surprising ease, her nursing experience helping her navigate the challenges of caring for 2 newborns. Her apartment, once a quiet refuge after long hospital shifts, now buzzed with the soft sounds of baby breaths and occasional cries. She sat in her favorite armchair, cradling the baby girl while her brother slept peacefully in the portable crib nearby. The little girl's eyes, still that newborn blue that might change with time, fixed on Olivia's face with what seemed like complete trust. A warm feeling spread through Olivia's chest, one that grew stronger with each passing day. "You're so precious," she whispered, running a finger along the baby's velvet soft cheek. "Both of you are." The girl responded by gripping Olivia's finger with surprising strength, and Olivia felt tears prick at her corners of her eyes. She hadn't expected this. This overwhelming surge of protectiveness and love. All her life, she'd kept her emotions carefully contained, focused on helping others while maintaining professional distance. But these babies had somehow slipped past every barrier she'd built. Every morning she'd visit Jackson at the hospital, bringing pictures and updates about the twins. His face would light up at each new detail. The boy's first smile, the girl's growing appetite, the way they seemed to comfort each other when placed side by side. The security team reported all clear again. Jackson told her during one such visit, his voice stronger than it had been days ago. "But we can't let our guard down." Olivia settled into the chair beside his bed, noting the improving color in his face. "The twins are safe. Nobody knows they're with me, and I've been careful, just like you asked." Jackson's expression softened. "How are they today?" "Growing stronger every day." Olivia smiled. "Your niece has quite the personality already. She won't sleep unless I sing to her, and only specific songs seem to work." "Just like Sarah," Jackson said quietly, pain flickering across his features. "She was always particular about music, too." Olivia reached out instinctively, placing her hand over his. "Tell me about her." For a moment she thought he might withdraw, but instead he turned his hand to grip hers. "Sarah she was the best of us. While I focused on business, she focused on truth. She never cared about the family money or status. She wanted to make things right." "What did she discover?" Olivia asked gently. Jackson's jaw tightened. "It started with discrepancies in the company books, things that didn't add up. But when she dug deeper..." He closed his eyes briefly. "Our father and uncle have been using the family business to launder money for years. But it's worse than that. Sarah found evidence of connections to human trafficking rings, illegal weapons deals." Olivia felt her stomach clench. "And they found out she knew." "She tried to tell me first," Jackson said, his voice thick with regret. "I didn't want to believe it. I told her to be careful, to gather more evidence before making accusations. If I'd just listened..." "You couldn't have known." Olivia squeezed his hand. "You were trying to protect her." "Fat lot of good that did," he said bitterly. "She was 8 months pregnant when she came to me again. Said she had proof, documents that would expose everything. The next day..." His voice broke. "The next day they said it was complications from the pregnancy. But I know better. They killed her, Olivia. They killed my sister because she threatened their empire, and now they want her children because they're the heirs to everything." Olivia thought of the peaceful babies sleeping in her apartment, unaware of the darkness surrounding their birth. "We won't let them win," she said firmly. "Those babies deserve better than that legacy." Jackson looked at her with intensity. "Why are you really helping us, Olivia? The truth?" She considered her answer carefully. "At first it was because it was the right thing to do, because I'm a nurse and helping people is what I do." She smiled softly. "But now it's because I love them. Those babies, they're not just a responsibility anymore. They're precious to me. And seeing you fight so hard to protect them, to honor your sister's memory, that matters too. Something shifted in Jackson's expression, a warmth appearing in his eyes that she hadn't seen before. You're remarkable, you know that? I'm just doing what needs to be done, she replied, but felt her cheeks warm at his words. No, he shook his head. You're doing so much more than that. You're giving them a chance at something better. You're giving me hope. The moment stretched between them, full of unspoken understanding. Finally, Jackson cleared his throat. I should be discharged soon. The doctor says I'm healing well. That's wonderful, Olivia said, though part of her worried about what would happen next. Would he take the twins away? Would she ever see them again? As if reading her thoughts, Jackson added, We'll need to figure out our next steps. The twins will need both of us, your care and my resources to keep them safe. If you're willing to stay involved? Relief flooded through her. Of course I am. I couldn't walk away now if I tried. Later that night, back in her apartment, Olivia held both twins as they slept. The boy snuffled softly in his sleep, while his sister curled her tiny fingers around the fabric of Olivia's shirt. The love she felt for them was almost overwhelming, fierce and protective and pure. We're going to keep you safe, she whispered to them. Both of us will. Your mum wanted better for you, and that's what you'll have. I promise. The twins slept on, peaceful and trusting, while Olivia kept her vigil. Outside, the city continued its endless rhythm, but in this moment, in this space, there was only love and hope, and the quiet determination to protect what mattered most. Days turned into weeks, and Jackson grew stronger while Olivia's bond with the twins deepened. She learned their unique personalities, the boy's calm nature, the girl's spirited demands for attention. She memorized their different cries, knew exactly how to hold each one to comfort them best. And with each passing day, her heart grew fuller with love for these precious lives entrusted to her care. The soft glow of the evening lamp cast gentle shadows across Olivia's small living room. She sat on her well-worn couch, her feet tucked beneath her, watching the twins sleeping peacefully in their cradle. Jackson occupied the armchair nearby, his tired eyes fixed on the rising and falling of the babies' tiny chests as they breathed. The city outside had grown quiet, save for the occasional distant siren or passing car. Inside, the only sounds were the twins' soft breathing and the quiet hum of the heating system. It was a moment of calm in what had been weeks of constant vigilance and worry. Olivia adjusted the pale yellow blanket covering the babies, her touch gentle and practiced. It's amazing how peaceful they can look, she whispered, careful not to disturb their sleep. Sometimes I forget all the trouble surrounding them when I watch them like this. Jackson nodded, his expression softening as he watched her careful movements. You're so natural with them, he observed, like you've been doing this your whole life. Small smile touched Olivia's lips, but there was a hint of sadness in her eyes. I always wanted to help people. Even when I was little, living in the rougher part of town, I'd patch up the neighborhood kids' scraped knees and bandage their cuts. Jackson turned toward her, interest flickering in his eyes. Tell me about that. About growing up. I realize I know so little about you, considering you're helping save my family. Olivia was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. We didn't have much, she finally said, her voice soft but clear. My mum worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. Our neighborhood wasn't the safest, but there was a real sense of community. Everyone looked out for each other because we had to. She reached down to adjust one of the twins' blankets again, more for comfort than necessity. Getting through nursing school wasn't easy. I worked every spare hour I could, studied late into the night. Some days I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open during lectures. But I knew what I wanted, to make a difference, to help people who needed it most. Like us, Jackson said quietly. Like you. She agreed, meeting his gaze. Though I never expected to be hiding from corrupt businessmen while protecting twin babies. She gave a small laugh, but it held no humor. Jackson leaned forward in his chair, his elbows resting on his knees. I'm sorry for bringing this danger into your life. You've worked so hard to build something good, and now... Don't, Olivia interrupted gently. I made my choice that night, and I'd make it again. These babies deserve a chance at a better life than the one your family's legacy would give them. The weight of unspoken guilt seemed to press down on Jackson's shoulders. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Olivia had come to recognize as a sign of his internal struggle. I should have protected Sarah better, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She came to me for help, and I didn't listen. Not really. I was so caught up in maintaining the family image, in believing that things couldn't be as bad as she claimed. Olivia watched as he stood and walked to the cradle, looking down at the sleeping twins, his sister's children, his niece and nephew. She trusted me, he continued, and I let her down. Now these innocent babies are paying the price for our family's sins. Jackson, Olivia said softly, rising to stand beside him. You're here now. You're fighting for them now. That's what matters. He turned to look at her, and in the dim light, she could see the vulnerability in his eyes. Sometimes I wonder if I'm strong enough to protect them, to give them the life Sarah wanted for them. You're not alone in this, Olivia reminded him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. We're in this together. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the space between them. It wasn't just about the twins anymore, or about duty or obligation. There was something else growing, something neither of them had expected when their paths first crossed that fateful night. The baby girl stirred in her sleep, making a tiny sound that drew both their attention. Together they watched as she settled again, her small hand curled into a fist beside her head. Her brother slept on, undisturbed. You know, Olivia said thoughtfully, my mum used to tell me that the hardest times in life show us who we really are, and who we can count on. She looked up at Jackson. I think she was right. Jackson's hand found hers where it still rested on his arm, his fingers wrapping gently around hers. The touch was tentative, but full of meaning. Thank you, he said simply, but his eyes said so much more. They stood there in the quiet evening, watching over the sleeping twins, their hands still joined. The danger hadn't disappeared, and the challenges they faced were still enormous, but something had changed. Their connection had deepened into something more than just an alliance of necessity. It had become a partnership built on trust, understanding, and perhaps something even more profound that neither was ready to name. The twins slept on, peaceful and innocent, while Olivia and Jackson kept their quiet vigil, both understanding that this moment marked a turning point in their journey together. The morning sun cast long shadows through the Venetian blinds of Olivia's apartment as Jackson pored over stacks of documents spread across her kitchen table. His sister Sarah's medical records, police reports, and financial statements created a paper trail that spoke of something far more sinister than a simple car accident. Look at this, Jackson said, his voice tight with controlled anger. He pushed a document toward Olivia, who was preparing bottles for the twins. The brake lines in Sarah's car were cut clean through. The police report lists it as wear and tear, but these photos... He spread out several glossy photographs. This was deliberate. Olivia set down the bottles and leaned over his shoulder, her heart racing as she examined the images. Who would have access to a car? That's what I've been trying to figure out. Jackson ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Sarah always parked in the private garage at Hayes Tower. Only family members and top executives have access to that level. The baby girl began to fuss in her portable crib, and Olivia automatically moved to comfort her. As she held the infant, she couldn't help but see Sarah's features in the tiny face. Your sister must have discovered something big for them to go to such lengths. Jackson nodded grimly. There's a board meeting today at Hayes Industries. All the key players will be there, including my uncle Robert, who took control after my father's death. He hesitated, watching as Olivia gently rocked his niece. I need to go, but I can't ask you to. I'm coming with you, Olivia interrupted firmly. We'll take the twins to my friend Marie's daycare center. She's trustworthy, and it's off the radar. Olivia, this is dangerous. My family, they're not who I thought they were. Jackson's face was etched with worry and guilt. I made my choice the moment I found you on that sidewalk, she replied, meeting his gaze steadily. These babies need both of us now. 2 hours later, they stood in the gleaming lobby of Hayes Tower. Olivia wore a borrowed business suit, her nurse's ID badge repurposed to look like a corporate pass. Jackson led her through security with practiced ease, his CEO credentials ensuring no one questioned her presence. The executive floor was a testament to wealth and power, all polished marble and floor-to-ceiling windows. Jackson guided Olivia to a small conference room adjacent to the main boardroom. The ventilation system connects these rooms, he explained in a whisper. We should be able to hear everything. They didn't have to wait long. Soon, voices filtered through the vent, growing clearer as more people entered the boardroom. Olivia recognized Robert Hayes' voice from news broadcasts, smooth, authoritative, and somehow cold. The situation with Sarah has been handled, Robert was saying. But we need to discuss the matter of her children. Those twins are the legitimate heirs to Jonathan's shares. Until we secure legal control of their inheritance, our position is vulnerable. The press is already asking questions about Sarah's accident. Another voice added, We need to be careful. Everything has been taken care of. Robert replied dismissively. The police investigation is closed. Now, about those shares. Olivia felt Jackson tense beside her. His hands were clenched into fists, his face pale with fury and grief. She placed a gentle hand on his arm, steadying him. The Children's Trust Fund is ironclad, a woman's voice pointed out. Jonathan made sure of that before he died. We can't touch it without their guardian's approval. Then we'll need to be creative, Robert said. Jackson's been asking questions. He needs to be dealt with, just like his sister. The words hung in the air like poison. Olivia's grip on Jackson's arm tightened as she saw the storm of emotions cross his face. They had their confirmation. His family had murdered Sarah and were now targeting him. We should go, Olivia whispered urgently. We have enough to take to the authorities. Jackson nodded mutely, and they slipped out of the conference room. The elevator ride down was tense, both of them aware that they were now in even greater danger. It wasn't until they were several blocks away, sitting in a small coffee shop, that Jackson finally spoke. They killed her, he said, his voice raw. My own family killed my sister because she discovered their corruption, and now they're after the twins' inheritance. He looked at Olivia, his eyes haunted. I've put you in terrible danger. I'm already involved, Olivia replied firmly. Those babies need protection, and so do you. We have evidence now. We can fight back. It's not that simple. My uncle has connections everywhere. Police, judges, politicians. We need more proof, something concrete that can't be buried or explained away. Olivia reached across the table and took his hand. Then we'll find it. Together. She squeezed his fingers gently. But first, we need to get somewhere safe. They know you're investigating now. Jackson nodded, his thumb unconsciously stroking the back of her hand. I have a place they don't know about. Sarah and I bought it together, off the books. We can go there, regroup, figure out our next move. I'll get the twins from Marie's. Olivia said, Pack only what we need. We should leave before dark. As they left the coffee shop, Olivia felt the weight of their discovery settling over her. She had known from the beginning that helping Jackson and the twins would be dangerous, but the reality of what they were facing was now crystal clear. His family had murdered Sarah in cold blood and were willing to do the same to him. The twins' lives, and now hers, were in danger too. But looking at Jackson, seeing the determination beneath his grief and anger, she knew she couldn't walk away. These babies deserved justice for their mother, and Jackson deserved the truth. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The afternoon sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon as they made their preparations to leave. Time was running out, and the shadows of Hayes Tower seemed to stretch toward them like grasping fingers. They had to move quickly now, before Robert Hayes and his conspirators realized just how much they had discovered. The morning sun cast long shadows across Olivia's apartment as she watched Jackson pace back and forth, his phone pressed to his ear. The twins slept peacefully in their portable cribs, unaware of the tension in the room. Mark, it's Jackson Hayes. His voice was tight with anxiety. I know it's been a while, but I need your help. Can we meet? Olivia held her breath, watching Jackson's face. After their discovery at Hayes Tower yesterday, they had spent the night discussing their options. Jackson had finally mentioned Mark, his childhood friend who had walked away from the family years ago. Thank you, Jackson said into the phone, relief evident in his voice. We'll be there in an hour. He turned to Olivia, running a hand through his disheveled hair. He agreed to meet us at the Blue Corner Cafe. It's a small place, easy to spot if anyone's following us. Olivia nodded, already gathering the twins' necessities. Do you trust him? Mark was the only one who saw through my family's facade, Jackson replied, helping her pack the diaper bag. He tried to warn me years ago, but I wouldn't listen. Maybe if I had... His voice trailed off, heavy with regret. They drove to the cafe in silence, taking different routes and doubling back several times to ensure they weren't being followed. The Blue Corner Cafe was tucked away on a quiet street, its own faded blue awning barely visible from the main road. Mark was already there, sitting in a corner booth with his back to the wall. He looked older than his early 40s, his face lined with worry. When he saw Jackson, something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, sadness, and a hint of fear. Jackson, he said, standing to shake hands. His gaze moved to Olivia and the twins. These must be Sarah's children. They settled into the booth, ordering coffee to avoid drawing attention. Mark studied Jackson's face for a long moment before speaking. I heard about Sarah, he said quietly. I'm so sorry, Jackson. I should have pushed harder when I first discovered what was happening. What did you discover? Jackson leaned forward, his voice barely above a whisper. What made you leave? Mark glanced around the cafe before pulling out an old leather notebook from his briefcase. I was reviewing some contracts for your father when I found discrepancies, large sums of money being moved through shell companies, properties being bought and sold at suspicious prices. When I dug deeper, I found connections to some very dangerous people. Olivia cradled one of the twins closer as Mark continued. But what really made me leave was what I found about your father, Jackson. He wasn't just aware of the corruption, he was orchestrating it. Jackson's face went pale. My father? But he died before any of this. That's what everyone was meant to believe. Mark said, sliding the notebook across the table. Your father faked his death, Jackson. He's been running everything from the shadows, using Robert as a front man. The revelation hit Jackson like a physical blow. Olivia reached for his hand under the table, feeling it trembling slightly. "There's more," Mark continued, his voice growing urgent. "Your sister found out. That's why they—" He stopped abruptly, his eyes focusing on something behind them. Olivia turned to see 3 men in dark suits entering the cafe. Their movements were too purposeful, too coordinated to be casual customers. "Back exit," Mark said quietly, sliding out of the booth. "Now." They moved quickly but carefully, trying not to draw attention. Olivia's heart hammered in her chest as she clutched the twins close. They had almost reached the kitchen when one of the men shouted, "Hayes!" The cafe erupted into chaos. Dishes crashed to the floor as customers scrambled out of the way. Jackson pushed Olivia toward the exit, shielding her and the twins with his body. Mark knocked over a rack of supplies, blocking the men's path. They burst out into the alley behind the cafe, the sound of pursuit close behind them. Mark led them through a maze of back streets, using his knowledge of the area to lose their pursuers. Finally, after what seemed like hours but was probably only minutes, they stopped in a small parking garage. Both twins were crying now, frightened by the sudden movement and tension. "They'll be watching my car," Mark said, breathing heavily. "Take mine." He handed Jackson his keys. "The notebook has everything I found. Accounts, dates, names. But be careful. These people—" He shook his head. "They won't stop until they have what they want." Jackson gripped Mark's shoulder. "Thank you. For everything." "Go," Mark urged. "I'll make sure they follow me instead of you." Olivia wanted to protest. It was too dangerous. But there was no time. They quickly transferred the car seats to Mark's vehicle while he disappeared in the opposite direction, deliberately making himself visible to draw attention. As they drove away, Olivia looked at Jackson's face. The revelation about his father had shaken him deeply, adding another layer of betrayal to an already painful situation. She reached over and squeezed his hand. "We'll figure this out," she said softly. "Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Jackson nodded, his jaw set with determination. "They've taken enough from us," he said. "No more running. It's time to fight back." The twins had finally settled, their small faces peaceful in sleep. Looking at them, Olivia felt a surge of protective determination. They deserved to know the truth about their mother, about their family, and she would do whatever it took to help uncover that truth, no matter the cost. Mark's notebook lay between them like a ticking bomb, filled with secrets that could bring down the Hayes Empire. But first, they needed to find somewhere safe to examine its contents, somewhere their enemies couldn't reach them. The winding mountain road stretched before them as Jackson navigated Mark's car through the deepening twilight. Olivia sat in the back, positioned between the twins' car seats, a gentle humming keeping them calm despite the tension in the air. The events at the cafe had left them all shaken, but they couldn't stop moving. Not yet. "There's a place," Jackson said, breaking the heavy silence. "A cabin that belonged to my sister. Only she and I knew about it." His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "It's about 2 hours north of here, completely off the grid." Olivia nodded, reaching forward to squeeze his shoulder. "That sounds perfect. Do you think they'll be able to track us there?" "No," he said firmly. "The property is registered under a different name. It was her escape plan, just in case." His voice caught on the words, and Olivia felt her heart ache for him. The drive took them deeper into the woods, the paved road eventually giving way to gravel. The twins had fallen asleep, their tiny faces peaceful despite everything happening around them. Olivia checked their blankets, making sure they were warm enough as the temperature dropped. Finally, Jackson turned onto a narrow dirt path, barely visible among the trees. The headlights illuminated a small, well-maintained cabin nestled in a clearing. It looked welcoming despite its isolation, with a wraparound porch and sturdy wooden walls. "We should be safe. Here," Jackson said, parking behind the cabin where the car wouldn't be visible from the main road. At least for now. They worked together silently, carrying the sleeping twins and their minimal supplies inside. The cabin was simple but comfortable, with a main room that served as both living room and kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom. Solar panels on the roof provided power and a well-supplied fresh water. Once the twins were settled in their portable cribs in one of the bedrooms, Olivia found Jackson standing by the window, his silhouette rigid with tension. The moonlight cast harsh shadows across his face, emphasizing the worry lines around his eyes. "Jackson," she said softly, "talk to me." He turned away, his shoulders hunched. "You shouldn't be here, Olivia. None of this is your fight." "Don't," she said firmly. "Don't try to push me away now. You don't understand," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "These people, my family, they're dangerous. You could have been killed today. The twins could have been hurt, and it would have been my fault." Olivia stepped closer, refusing to let him retreat into his guilt. "I made my choice the moment I found you on that sidewalk. I'm not going anywhere." "Why?" He spun around, his eyes blazing with a mix of anger and fear. "Why would you risk everything for us?" "Because it's the right thing to do," she said simply. "Because those babies deserve to know the truth about their mother. Because you shouldn't have to face this alone." The fight seemed to drain out of him all at once. He sank onto the worn couch, his head in his hands. "There's something else," he said after a long moment. "Something I haven't told you." Olivia sat beside him, close enough to offer support, but giving him space to speak. The cabin creaked softly around them, the sound of the wind in the trees a gentle backdrop to their conversation. "I think I know who's been feeding information to my family," he said. "David Chen. He's been my closest business associate for 15 years. We built half our international operations together." Jackson's voice cracked. "He was at my sister's wedding. He held the twins the day they were born." Olivia's heart sank. Another betrayal, another person Jackson had trusted turning against him. "What made you suspect him?" "Little things at first. Meetings that got rescheduled at the last minute, documents that went missing and reappeared. Then today, at the cafe, those men knew exactly where to find us. Only 3 people knew about that meeting, and David was one of them." The revelation hung heavy in the air between them. Olivia could see how deeply this betrayal cut him, adding another layer to the wounds his family had already inflicted. "The conspiracy goes deeper than I thought," Jackson continued. "It's not just my family anymore. They've infiltrated every part of my life, turned people I trusted against me." He looked at her, his eyes haunted. "How am I supposed to fight an enemy I can't even identify?" Olivia reached for his hand, holding it firmly in both of hers. "We start with what we know. Mark's notebook, David's betrayal. These are pieces of the puzzle. Together we can figure this out." "Together," he repeated, as if testing the word. "Olivia, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking," she interrupted. "I'm telling. We're in this together now, whether you like it or not." A cry from the bedroom interrupted them. One of the twins was awake. Olivia stood, but Jackson caught her hand. "Thank you," he said softly. "For everything." She smiled, squeezing his hand before going to check on the babies. As she walked away, she could feel some of the tension in the cabin dissipating. They were far from safe, and the revelations about David had shaken their world even further. But they weren't alone. The twins' cry turned into happy gurgles as Olivia lifted her from the crib. "There you go, sweetheart," she whispered, cradling the baby close. We're going to be okay. All of us. From the other room, she could hear Jackson beginning to page through Mark's notebook, searching for answers. The night stretched ahead of them, full of uncertainties. But for now, they had found a moment of peace in their hidden sanctuary. The baby in her arms yawned, her tiny hand curling around Olivia's finger. In that moment, Olivia's resolve strengthened. No matter what came next, no matter how big the conspiracy proved to be, she would stand her ground. These children deserved a future free from the shadow of corruption, and Jackson deserved a chance to heal from the wounds of betrayal. The cabin's wooden walls creaked in the chilly morning air as Olivia gently rocked the baby girl. Outside, rain tapped against the windows, creating a soothing rhythm that matched her swaying. 5 days had passed since they'd fled to this hideout, and each hour seemed to stretch longer than the last. "There you go, sweet girl," Olivia whispered, her voice soft and reassuring. The baby's eyes, so like her mother's according to Jackson, blinked sleepily. Next to them, her brother slept soundly in the makeshift crib they'd fashioned from an old dresser drawer. Jackson paced near the window, his phone pressed to his ear. His shoulders were tense, and Olivia could see the worry lines deepening around his eyes. "What do you mean they're moving assets?" he demanded, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "Those accounts were supposed to be frozen." Olivia watched as he ran a hand through his disheveled hair, a gesture she'd come to recognize as a sign of his growing frustration. The past few days had aged him, adding shadows under his eyes and a heaviness to his movements that hadn't been there before. "They're trying to drain everything," he said after hanging up, his words clipped and bitter. "My family's making their move. They're going after every account, every property, anything that could be part of the twins' inheritance." "Can they do that?" Olivia asked, carefully laying the now sleeping baby girl next to her brother. "Legally. No, but when has that ever stopped them?" Jackson slumped into a chair, the weight of his family's betrayal visible in every line of his body. "They're using David's inside knowledge of our operations. He knows where everything is, how it's all connected." Olivia moved to the small kitchen area, putting on a pot of coffee. They'd been surviving on instant for days, but she'd managed to find some real grounds in the cabin's sparse supplies. "We'll figure something out," she said, trying to inject confidence into her voice. "We always do." "You shouldn't have to," Jackson replied, his tone softer now. "This isn't your fight, Olivia. You could walk away, go back to your life, be safe." She turned to face him, her expression determined. "Stop trying to protect me by pushing me away. I'm exactly where I need to be." The coffee maker gurgled, filling the cabin with its rich aroma. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the roof. Olivia busied herself with mugs and spoons, giving Jackson time to process her words. "Besides," she continued, setting a steaming cup in front of him, "who would take care of the twins? You can barely remember to feed yourself most days." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "They do seem to like you better." "They like us both," she corrected, sitting across from him. "They need us both." As if on cue, a soft whimper came from the makeshift nursery area. Olivia started to rise, but Jackson beat her to it. "I've got this one," he said. She watched as he lifted the fussy baby boy, his large hands gentle and sure. The sight made her heart twist in a way she wasn't ready to examine too closely. Despite his attempts to maintain emotional distance, she could see how deeply he cared for his sister's children. "Your Uncle Jackson's got you," he murmured to the baby, swaying slightly. "Nobody's going to hurt you, I promise." The tenderness in his voice brought unexpected tears to Olivia's eyes. She blinked them away quickly, focusing instead on the practical matters at hand. "We need supplies," she said. We're almost out of formula, and the babies need more diapers. Jackson nodded, still focused on the infant in his arms. I can make some calls, get someone trustworthy to deliver what we need. Are you sure anyone's still trustworthy? The question slipped out before she could stop it. His expression darkened. No, but we don't have much choice. The baby boy settled, drifting back to sleep against Jackson's chest. Olivia watched as he carefully laid the infant back down, tucking the blanket around him with surprising tenderness. You're good with them, she observed quietly. I had practice with my sister's first pregnancy, he replied, his voice thick with memory. She made me learn everything, feeding, changing, burping, said I needed to be prepared to be the world's best uncle. He swallowed hard. I never imagined this was how it would turn out. Olivia stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. She knew you would protect them. That's why she trusted you with the truth about your family. Fat lot of good it did her, he said bitterly. I couldn't save her. But you can save them, Olivia insisted, gesturing to the sleeping twins. You already are. Thunder rumbled in the distance, and the cabin's lights flickered ominously. Olivia immediately moved to check the emergency supplies they'd gathered. Flashlights, batteries, blankets. Living in hiding had made her hyper-aware of potential problems. We should consider moving, Jackson said, watching her preparations. We've been here too long already. Where would we go? I have a few properties they don't know about, places I kept off the books, just in case. He paused, studying her face. But I won't ask you to come. You've already risked too much. Olivia straightened, fixing him with a stern look. Jackson Hayes, if you try to leave with these babies without me, I will track you down myself. We're in this together now. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, respect, and something deeper she couldn't quite name. Together, he repeated softly. The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken emotions. Then a cell phone buzzed, breaking the spell. Jackson checked the screen, his face hardening. They're making their move, he said grimly. My father's called an emergency board meeting. They're going to try to force me out of the company completely. Can they do that? With David's help? Probably. They'll claim I'm mentally unstable, unfit to lead. They'll use my disappearance with the twins as proof. He laughed humorlessly. The irony is, they're the ones who drove me into hiding in the first place. Olivia's protective instincts flared. We need to fight back, she said firmly. We need to expose them before they can take everything. Jackson looked at her with newfound appreciation. We? Yes, we. I'm not just the twins' temporary caregiver anymore. I'm in this fight with you, whether you like it or not. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, he said. Together. Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the cabin, something had shifted. Their partnership, born of necessity and strengthened by shared purpose, was becoming something more. Neither of them was ready to name it yet, but they could feel it growing stronger with each passing day. The twins slept peacefully, unaware of the battles being fought on their behalf. Olivia watched them breathe, their tiny chests rising and falling in perfect synchronization. She had never meant to become so invested, never planned to put her whole life on hold for 2 babies and their troubled uncle. But here she was, and she couldn't imagine being anywhere else. Jackson moved to stand beside her, their shoulders barely touching. Thank you, he said quietly. For staying, for caring, for... He gestured, vaguely, encompassing everything he couldn't put into words. Always, she replied simply, and they stood together in comfortable silence, watching over their shared charges as the storm raged on. Rain pattered against the cabin windows as Olivia sorted through another box of papers. Her eyes burned from hours of reading, but she couldn't stop. Somewhere in these documents lay the truth they desperately needed. "Look at this," Jackson called from across the room. He held up a weathered leather journal, its pages stuffed with loose papers. "It's Sarah's diary. I didn't even know she kept one." Olivia carefully set down the files she'd been examining and moved to sit beside him on the worn couch. The twins slept soundly in their makeshift nursery, a corner of the cabin sectioned off with hanging blankets. Jackson's hands trembled slightly as he opened the journal. His sister's neat handwriting filled the pages, along with newspaper clippings and what looked like financial statements paper-clipped between entries. She knew, he whispered, scanning the first few pages. She'd been gathering evidence for months before. His voice caught. Olivia placed a gentle hand on his arm. "What kind of evidence?" "Money transfers, offshore accounts, board meeting minutes." He flipped through more pages. She was tracking everything. "Look at this. She documented every suspicious death connected to our family's companies over the past 10 years. Olivia leaned closer, reading over his shoulder. The list was disturbingly long. These weren't all accidents, were they? Jackson shook his head grimly. Sarah suspected Uncle Richard was behind most of them. She writes here about finding proof that he'd been embezzling money through shell companies, using it to pay off people who could expose the family's illegal activities. A folded piece of paper slipped from between the pages. Olivia caught it before it could fall to the floor. It was a letter, dated just 3 days before Sarah's death. "Dear Jackson," she read aloud, "if you're reading this, something has happened to me. The information I've gathered is too dangerous to keep in one place. I've hidden everything where only you would think to look, where we made our childhood promise. Remember the old oak? The truth is there, all of it. Protect my babies. Don't let them inherit this darkness. Love, Sarah." Jackson stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "The oak tree. Of course. At our grandparents' summer house, there was this massive oak tree with a hollow trunk. We used to hide treasures there as kids." "You think she left more evidence there?" "She must have. It's the perfect hiding place. The property's been abandoned for years since our grandparents died. No one would think to look there." Olivia felt hope rising in her chest. This could be it. The proof we need to expose everything. "We'll need to be careful," Jackson warned. "If Uncle Richard really is behind all this, then he's the one who killed Sarah." Olivia finished softly. Jackson's face hardened. "And he'll kill anyone else who threatens to expose him." They spent the next hour making plans. The summer house was 3 hours away, deep in the countryside. They would need to move quickly and quietly, avoiding any surveillance Richard might have in place. "I'll go tomorrow morning," Jackson decided. "You should stay here with the twins where it's safe." Olivia shook her head firmly. "We stick together, remember? The twins will be fine for a few hours with my friend Marie. She's a pediatric nurse. I trust her completely." Jackson looked like he wanted to argue but thought better of it. They'd learned to trust each other's judgment over the past weeks. The next morning dawned clear and cold. After dropping the twins off with Marie, they took back roads to avoid detection, tension mounting as they neared their destination. The old summer house stood exactly as Jackson remembered it, a grand Victorian slowly being reclaimed by nature. "The oaks around back," he said, leading the way through overgrown gardens. The massive tree dominated the rear landscape, its trunk wide enough that 3 people couldn't join hands around it. Jackson found the hollow quickly, muscle memory from childhood adventures guiding his hands. "Here," he said, reaching deep into the cavity. His fingers brushed something plastic. A waterproof document case emerged from the darkness, covered in leaves but intact. Olivia helped him brush it clean. Inside, they found a USB drive, more financial records, and photographs, dozens of them, showing Richard meeting with known criminals, exchanging briefcases, shaking hands with men whose faces appeared in Sarah's list of suspicious deaths. "This is everything we need," Jackson breathed. "With this evidence we can—" A twig snapped behind them. Before they could react, 3 men in dark suits emerged from the undergrowth, guns raised. Olivia's heart stopped as she recognized one of them, David, Jackson's trusted business associate. "I'm sorry it had to come to this," David said, not sounding sorry at all. "But we can't let you expose the truth. Richard sends his regards." Everything happened in a blur. Jackson moved to shield Olivia, but one of the men grabbed her, yanking her away. She fought back, landing a solid kick to her attacker's shin, but another man pressed a cloth to her face. The world began to fade. The last thing she saw was Jackson's desperate face as David held him back at gunpoint. Then darkness claimed her. When she came to, she was in what appeared to be a basement room, zip-tied to a chair. Her head throbbed, and her mouth felt like cotton. Through her grogginess, she heard voices above, men arguing. "Only a matter of time before Hayes shows up," someone was saying. "He won't let her die like his sister did. That's counting on him getting away from David." Another voice responded. "And even if he does, we're ready this time. The boss wants this ended tonight." Olivia tested her restraints, trying to stay calm. She knew Jackson would come for her. That's what worried her most. She didn't want him walking into a trap, didn't want to be the reason he lost everything he'd fought so hard to protect. But as she thought of the twins, of the evidence they'd found, of the justice Sarah deserved, she knew there was no other way this could end. They were in this together, for better or worse. Somewhere above, a door slammed. Footsteps approached. Olivia straightened in her chair, refusing to show fear. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same strength that had carried her this far. She thought of Jackson, of the twins, of the family they'd somehow become. And she waited, knowing that one way or another, this long nightmare was about to reach its climax. Jackson's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. Every second that passed felt like an eternity as he followed the GPS signal from Olivia's phone. David's betrayal still stung, but he'd managed to break free when his former associate got distracted by a phone call. Now all that mattered was finding Olivia. The signal led him to an industrial area on the outskirts of town. Old warehouses loomed against the darkening sky, their windows like hollow eyes staring down at him. Jackson parked his car behind a dumpster and moved carefully through the shadows, his heart pounding against his ribs. He checked his phone again. The signal was coming from the third warehouse, a decrepit building with peeling paint and rusted metal doors. 2 men in dark suits stood guard outside, confirming his suspicions. Jackson's mind raced as he assessed the situation. He couldn't fight both guards directly. He needed a distraction. Picking up a piece of broken concrete, he threw it toward a stack of empty metal drums several yards away. The crash echoed through the empty lot. As expected, one of the guards went to investigate while the other remained at his post. Jackson moved silently behind the remaining guard, using the self-defense techniques he'd learned years ago. A quick chokehold, and the man slumped unconscious. The second guard returned just as Jackson finished hiding his colleague behind some crates. "Hey, what did you—" The guard's words cut off as Jackson tackled him. They struggled briefly before Jackson managed to subdue him, too. Inside the warehouse, Jackson's footsteps echoed on the concrete floor. He could hear voices coming from below. There must be a basement. Following the sound, he found a metal staircase leading down. The voices grew clearer as he descended. "The boss wants her eliminated if Hayes doesn't show up soon." a gruff voice was saying. "Can't risk her talking about what she's seen." Jackson's blood ran cold. He peered around the corner and saw 3 more men, all armed, standing near a heavy door. Beyond them, through a small window in the door, he could see Olivia tied to a chair. She looked pale but determined, her chin held high despite her situation. Just then, one of the men's phones rang. "Yeah, boss. No sign of Hayes yet. What do you want us to do with the girl?" While the man was distracted by his call, Jackson noticed Olivia working at her restraints. She must have managed to get hold of something sharp. He could see her hands moving behind her back. Pride and worry warred in his chest as he watched her. Jackson needed to act fast. He grabbed a wrench from a nearby workbench and threw it down the hallway behind the men. As they turned toward the noise, weapons raised, he charged forward. The fight was brutal but quick. Years of boxing training paid off as Jackson took down the first man with a right hook. The second tried to shoot, but Jackson knocked the gun aside. The third man got in a solid punch before Jackson managed to subdue him. Just as he finished with the last guard, he heard Olivia cry out. She had freed herself from the zip ties, but another man, one Jackson hadn't seen, had grabbed her from behind. "Don't move, Hayes," the man growled, pressing a gun to Olivia's temple. "Or your nurse friend here gets to join your sister." Olivia's eyes met Jackson's, and in that split second, something passed between them. Without warning, Olivia stomped hard on her captor's foot and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. The man's grip loosened just enough for Jackson to tackle him. The gun went flying as they crashed to the floor. Olivia dove for it while Jackson grappled with the man. She grabbed the weapon and pointed it at their attacker with steady hands. "Don't move," she commanded, her voice firm despite her ordeal. Jackson quickly subdued the man, using the zip ties they'd used on Olivia to secure his hands. Only then did he turn to her, his heart still racing. "Are you okay?" he asked, reaching for her. Olivia nodded, though her hands shook slightly as she lowered the gun. "I'm fine, just tired of being used as bait to trap you." Jackson pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. She melted against him, her breath coming in shaky gasps as the adrenaline began to wear off. "I thought I'd lost you," he whispered into her hair. "When they took you, I knew you'd come," she said softly, pulling back to look at him. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "But I was more worried about you walking into their trap. I couldn't bear it if something happened to you because of me." Jackson touched her cheek gently, his thumb brushing away a tear that had escaped. "Nothing's going to happen to either of us. We're in this together, remember?" Olivia leaned into his touch, closing her eyes briefly. When she opened them again, they were filled with determination. "We need to get that evidence to the authorities before Richard realizes his plan failed." Jackson nodded, but he didn't let go of her just yet. The fear of losing her was still too fresh, too raw. "We will, but first we need to get somewhere safe and check on the twins." "The twins!" Olivia gasped. "What if they try to go after them while we're here?" "Marie has them at a safe house, one Richard doesn't know about," Jackson assured her. "I made sure of that before I came after you." Relief flooded Olivia's face, and she sagged against him again. "Thank you. For everything." Jackson held her closer, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, grateful beyond words that she was safe. "We protect each other," he said simply. "That's what family does." They stood there for a moment longer, drawing strength from each other's presence. Then, with one final squeeze, they separated and began planning their next move. They had the evidence they needed to bring Richard down, but getting it to the right people wouldn't be easy. As they made their way carefully out of the warehouse, Jackson kept Olivia close, his hand never leaving the small of her back. The sky had grown dark, and a cool breeze carried the scent of rain. But despite the darkness around them, both felt a surge of hope. They had each other, they had the twins, and they had the truth. Now they just had to stay alive long enough to use it. The rain had started to fall as Jackson and Olivia pulled up to the Hayes family estate. The massive Victorian mansion loomed before them, its windows dark except for a soft glow coming from Uncle Walter's study on the second floor. Jackson's hands tightened on the steering wheel as memories of his childhood here flooded back, both the good and the painful. "Are you sure about this?" Olivia asked softly, placing her hand over his. The documents they'd recovered from his sister's safety deposit box sat heavy in her bag. Jackson nodded, his jaw set with determination. "He's always here at this hour. Working late, he claims. Really, he's covering his tracks, moving money around when he thinks no one's watching." They had left the twins with Marie at the safe house, knowing this confrontation could turn dangerous. The weight of their mission pressed down on both of them. This was their chance to end it all, to secure the twins' future and bring justice for Jackson's sister. "Remember the plan," Jackson said, turning to face Olivia. "If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong." Olivia interrupted, her voice firm, despite the fear she couldn't quite hide. "We have the evidence. We have Detective Morrison on standby. Your uncle won't escape this time." They made their way to the house, using Jackson's old key to enter through the side door. The mansion was eerily quiet, their footsteps muffled by thick carpeting as they climbed the main staircase. As they approached Uncle Walter's study, they could hear him talking on the phone. "Yes, everything's under control." His voice drifted through the door. "Hayes won't be a problem much longer. Neither will that nurse he's been running around with." Jackson's fists clenched at the threat to Olivia, but she placed a steadying hand on his arm. They waited until they heard him end the call before Jackson pushed open the heavy wooden door. Uncle Walter looked up from his desk, his expression shifting from surprise to calculated pleasure. "Jackson, my boy, and Ms. Daniels, what an unexpected pleasure." "Save it, Uncle Walter," Jackson said, his voice cold. "We know everything." Walter's smile didn't waver as he leaned back in his leather chair. "Everything? That's quite a broad statement. Why don't you tell me exactly what you think you know?" Olivia stepped forward, pulling out the documents. "We know about the money laundering through the family's charitable foundation. We know about the offshore accounts where you've been hiding the twins' inheritance. And we know what really happened to Jackson's sister." For the first time, Walter's smile faltered slightly. "Interesting theories. But that's all they are, theories. You have no proof." "Actually, we do," Jackson said, moving closer to the desk. "Sarah wasn't just investigating the Foundation's finances. She was gathering evidence she managed to hide before you had her killed." Walter stood slowly, his facade of pleasantness dropping away. "You always were too smart for your own good, Jackson, just like your sister. She couldn't leave well enough alone either. She was trying to protect this family's legacy." Jackson shot back. "The real legacy, not the corrupt empire you've built on lies and murder." "Legacy." Walter laughed harshly. "The only legacy that matters is power. Your father understood that, even if he was too weak to do what needed to be done. I made this family what it is today." "You destroyed this family," Olivia said, her voice steady despite Walter's intimidating glare. "You turned it into something toxic and dangerous. But that ends tonight." Walter's hand moved toward his desk drawer, but Jackson was faster. He grabbed his uncle's wrist, twisting it away from what he knew was a gun hidden inside. "Don't," Jackson warned. "Detective Morrison is already on his way with a warrant. Those documents aren't copies, they're the originals. Sarah left a trail that leads right to you." Walter's face contorted with rage. "You fool! Do you have any idea what you're throwing away? the power, the influence, it could all be yours if you just played along. I don't want it, Jackson said firmly. Not if it means becoming like you. The sound of sirens in the distance made Walter's face pale. He lunged suddenly, shoving Jackson aside and making a break for the door. But Olivia was there, and with perfect timing, she stuck out her foot. Walter went down hard, crashing into a side table. Before he could recover, Jackson had him pinned. It's over, Uncle Walter. The truth is finally coming out. Minutes later, Detective Morrison and his team burst into the study. They found Walter Hayes, the powerful business magnate, face down on the carpet with his nephew holding him there. The detective read him his rights as his officers began collecting evidence from the study. We'll need both of you to come down to the station to give formal statements, Morrison told Jackson and Olivia as Walter was led away in handcuffs. Of course. Olivia nodded, still clutching the documents that had helped bring down the conspiracy. As they watched Walter being escorted to a police car, Jackson pulled Olivia close. Thank you, he whispered. I couldn't have done this without you. Olivia leaned into him, exhausted but relieved. We did it together. For the twins. For your sister. For our family. Jackson corrected her softly. They stood there in the study where so many corrupt deals had been made, where power had corrupted, and where justice had finally prevailed. The rain outside had stopped, and through the window they could see the first hints of dawn breaking over the horizon. Detective Morrison approached them again, his notebook in hand. Ready to tell me everything? Jackson and Olivia exchanged looks, then nodded. It was time to tell the whole story, to ensure that Uncle Walter and his conspirators would pay for their crimes. The truth would finally set them all free. Together, they began to recount the events that had led them to this moment. The mysterious death of Jackson's sister, the desperate night when he'd found Olivia with the twins, and everything that had followed. As they spoke, they held hands, drawing strength from each other, knowing that while one chapter of their story was ending, another was just beginning. The victory felt hollow as Jackson stood in his family's grand foyer for what he knew would be the last time. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the marble floor. The house that had once represented power and prestige now felt cold and empty. His father's lawyer, Mr. Richardson, sat across from him at the antique mahogany table, sliding document after document toward him. Each paper represented another piece of his old life slipping away. The board has voted unanimously, Richardson said, his voice clinically detached. You've been removed from your position as CEO, effective immediately. Your shares in the company will be bought out at market value. Jackson nodded numbly, watching his signature fill the bottom of each page. The pen felt heavy in his hand, like it was made of lead instead of silver. The family trust has also been amended. Richardson continued. You've been formally removed as a beneficiary. However, the twins' portion remains intact and will be managed by an independent trustee until they come of age. Olivia sat beside Jackson, her hand resting supportively on his arm. She could feel the tension radiating from him, see the muscle working in his jaw as he clenched his teeth. At least the twins are protected, she whispered, trying to find something positive in this devastating moment. Jackson didn't respond. He just kept signing, page after page, document after document, systematically erasing himself from the world he'd known his entire life. When Richardson finally gathered his papers and left, the silence in the room became deafening. Jackson stood abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, the carefully manicured gardens seemed to mock him with their perfection. You did the right thing, Olivia said softly, coming to stand beside him. Your sister would be proud. Would she? His voice was rough with emotion. I've destroyed everything our family built over generations. The company will barely survive this scandal. Hundreds of people might lose their jobs." "That's not on you," Olivia insisted. "Your uncle's crimes did this. You just exposed the truth." Jackson turned away from the window, his face haunted. The truth is that I should have seen it sooner. I should have listened when Sarah first came to me with her suspicions. Maybe if I had—" "Don't." Olivia reached for his hand, but he pulled away. "You can't blame yourself for what others did." "Can't I?" He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. I was too focused on my own success, too blind to see what was happening right in front of me. And now? Now I've lost everything. "Not everything," Olivia said quietly. "You still have the twins. You still have—" She hesitated. "You still have me." Jackson's expression twisted with pain. "That's just it, isn't it? I drag everyone I care about into my mess. Sarah died because she tried to fight this battle alone. You were kidnapped, could have been killed because of me." "Jackson, please." Olivia stepped closer, trying to bridge the growing emotional distance between them. "I chose to be part of this. I chose to help you, to stay with you." "Maybe you shouldn't have," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe you should go before something worse happens." The words hit Olivia like a physical blow. "You don't mean that." "I do." Jackson turned away again, his shoulders rigid with tension. I can't do this right now, Olivia. I can't be what you need me to be. I need time to figure out who I am without all of this." Tears welled in Olivia's eyes, but she blinked them back. "So you're just going to push me away? After everything we've been through together?" "It's better this way," he said, but his voice cracked slightly, betraying his own pain. "Safer." Olivia stood there for a long moment, her heart breaking. She thought about the past weeks, about the connection they'd formed, about the way they'd learned to trust each other. She thought about the twins, sleeping peacefully at her apartment, unaware that their world was changing yet again. "You're scared," she said finally. "I understand that, but pushing away people who care about you isn't the answer." Jackson didn't respond, didn't turn around. His silence spoke volumes. Olivia took a deep, shaky breath. "When you're ready to talk, really talk, you know where to find me. The twins need you. And whether you believe it or not, right now, you need us too." She waited another moment, hoping he would turn around, say something, anything. But he remained frozen, staring out at the garden where he and his sister had played as children, where everything had once seemed so simple and clear. Finally, Olivia turned and walked towards the door. Her footsteps echoed in the vast foyer, each one feeling like another piece of her heart breaking. At the doorway she paused, her hand on the ornate handle. "You're not alone, Jackson," she said softly. "Not unless you choose to be." The door closed behind her with a quiet click, leaving Jackson alone in the house that no longer felt like home. He pressed his forehead against the cool glass of the window, closing his eyes against the tears that threatened to fall. Outside, Olivia sat in her car, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She wanted to run back inside, to shake some sense into him, to make him see that pushing her away wasn't the answer. But she knew that right now he needed space to process his loss, to grieve for everything that had changed. The question was, would he find his way back to her when he was ready? And more importantly, would she still be waiting when he did? The days following their separation stretched into weeks, each one feeling longer than the last. Olivia threw herself into her work at the hospital, finding comfort in the routine of helping others. During her shifts, she focused entirely on her patients, But in the quiet moments between rounds, her thoughts would drift to Jackson. The twins became her anchor. Every evening when she returned home, their bright eyes and innocent smiles reminded her why she'd gotten involved in the first place. She'd rock them to sleep, singing soft lullabies her mother used to sing to her, finding peace in their steady breathing and tiny hands clutching her fingers. "You two are the best thing that's happened to me," she whispered one night, gently placing the sleeping girl in her crib. "Even if your uncle is being stubborn right now." Across town, Jackson sat in his new apartment, surrounded by boxes he hadn't bothered to unpack. The space was modest compared to his family's mansion, but it was his, bought with money he'd earned himself, not tainted by his family's corruption. He'd resigned from the family company, starting fresh with a small consulting firm that valued integrity over profit. But the nights were the hardest. He'd find himself reaching for his phone, scrolling to Olivia's number, his finger hovering over the call button. Each time, he'd set the phone down, telling himself it was better this way. Yet the memory of her words haunted him. "You're not alone, Jackson. Not unless you choose to be." At work, Olivia noticed small changes in herself. She stood taller, spoke more confidently in meetings. Her supervisor commented on her increased focus and dedication. "Whatever's changed in your life," she said, "it's made you stronger." Olivia smiled, knowing that facing danger and standing up for what was right had transformed her in ways she was still discovering. The scared nurse who'd found a man and 2 babies on the street seemed like a lifetime ago. Jackson's transformation was more visible. He started jogging in the mornings, the physical exertion helping to clear his mind. He joined a support group for people dealing with family trauma, finally allowing himself to process years of buried emotions. Slowly, he began to understand that pushing people away wasn't protecting them. It was protecting himself from the possibility of being hurt again. 3 weeks after their separation, Olivia was checking on a patient when she felt a presence in the doorway. Turning, she found Jackson standing there, looking both nervous and determined. "Hi," he said simply, his voice soft. Olivia's heart skipped a beat, but she maintained her professional composure. "Hi," she replied, finishing her notes before stepping into the hallway. "I've been seeing someone," Jackson said quickly, then added, "A therapist, I mean. She's been helping me understand some things." Olivia nodded, waiting for him to continue. "I thought I was protecting you by pushing you away," he admitted, "but I was really just scared. Scared of letting someone else in, scared of what it meant to trust again." He took a deep breath. "I miss you, Olivia. I miss the twins. I miss who I am when I'm with you." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes, but she blinked them back. "The twins miss you too," she said softly. "They get excited every time the door opens, like they're expecting you to walk in." Jackson's face softened at the mention of the babies. "I've been thinking about what you said, about not being alone unless I choose to be." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I don't want to be alone anymore. What we went through together, it changed me. You changed me. And I know now that pushing you away was the biggest mistake I could have made." Olivia felt her resolve weakening. "How do I know you won't push me away again the next time things get hard?" "Because I finally understand that being strong doesn't mean facing everything alone," Jackson replied. "It means having the courage to let people in, to accept help, to trust." He reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. "I can't promise I won't make mistakes, but I can promise I'll never willingly walk away from you again." The sincerity in his eyes, the warmth of his hand in hers, broke down the last of Olivia's defenses. She stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him in a tight embrace. Jackson held her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her hair, feeling for the first time in weeks like he was truly home. "Come see the twins tonight," Olivia murmured against his chest. "They need their uncle. And I—" She pulled back slightly, meeting his gaze. "I need you too." Jackson nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I need you both more than I ever thought possible," he admitted. "We've been through hell together, and instead of breaking us, it made us stronger. I don't want to waste any more time being afraid of what we could be." Their reunion marked the beginning of a new chapter. In the weeks that followed, Jackson and Olivia fell into a comfortable routine with the twins. The spare bedroom in Olivia's apartment transformed into a proper nursery, painted in soft yellows and greens. Jackson spent his evenings after work helping with bedtime stories and midnight feedings, his business suits often spotted with baby formula. "I never thought I'd be so happy to be spit up on," he laughed one evening as the baby girl gurgled contentedly in his arms. Olivia watched from the doorway, her heart full. "You're a natural," she said softly. "Who would have thought the tough CEO had such a gentle touch?" The twins grew stronger each day, their personalities beginning to shine through. The boy was curious and active, always reaching for new things, while his sister was more observant, taking in the world with wide, thoughtful eyes. Together, Jackson and Olivia navigated the challenges of parenthood. They took turns during sleepless nights, supported each other through teething troubles, and celebrated every small milestone. Their first smiles, their first attempts at rolling over, each moment felt like a precious gift. "We're really doing this," Olivia marveled one Sunday morning, as they sat on a blanket in the park, the twins babbling happily between them. "Building a family." Jackson reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "Not just any family," he said. "Our family. One built on trust and love, not power and greed." Their love, forged in crisis and strengthened by shared purpose, deepened with each passing day. They found joy in simple moments, family dinners, weekend outings, quiet evenings at home. The shadows of the past began to fade, replaced by the warm light of their growing love and the laughter of the twins. Through it all, they remained each other's strength, facing the challenges of parenthood together, their bond growing stronger with each shared experience. Time flowed like a gentle stream, marking the passing seasons with the twins' growth and the deepening of Jackson and Olivia's love. The once tiny babies were now energetic toddlers, their footsteps echoing through the halls of their new home, a cozy house with a backyard perfect for play. "Mama, Papa!" the twins would call out, their voices filled with excitement as they discovered something new each day. Olivia's heart swelled every time they called her Mama, a title she had earned through endless nights of love and care. Jackson's business flourished under his honest leadership. He had rebuilt his company from the ground up, ensuring every deal was transparent and ethical. His employees respected him not out of fear, but because of his integrity and fairness. "I want them to grow up seeing what real success looks like," Jackson told Olivia one evening as they watched the twins play with building blocks. "Success built on hard work and honesty, not manipulation and greed." Olivia nodded, remembering how far they'd come from that fateful night when she found him on the sidewalk with 2 newborns in his arms. "They'll learn from the best," she said, squeezing his hand. The twins were living proof of their journey. The little girl had her aunt's kind eyes, while the boy had Jackson's determined spirit. They were growing up surrounded by love, far from the dark shadows that had once threatened their future. "Sometimes I can hardly believe this is our life now," Olivia mused as she tucked the twins into bed one night. "From that terrifying beginning to this perfect happiness." Jackson wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her close. "We built this together," he whispered. every step of the way, through all the fear and uncertainty, and I wouldn't change a single moment of it. Their love had become a sanctuary, a safe harbor built from trust and shared experiences. The wounds of the past had healed, replaced by the joy of their present and the promise of their future together. The warm afternoon sun streamed through the windows as Olivia watched the twins chase each other in the backyard. At 3 years old, they were bundles of endless energy and curiosity. She smiled, remembering the tiny newborns they once were, now transformed into laughing, vibrant children. Jackson came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked softly. "Just thinking about how far we've come," Olivia replied, leaning back against him. "From that night on the sidewalk to this moment, it feels like a lifetime ago." The twins spotted them through the window and waved enthusiastically. "Mama! Papa! Come play!" they called out in unison, their faces bright with joy. "We'd better join them," Jackson chuckled, taking Olivia's hand. They stepped out into the sunlight, where the children immediately grabbed their hands, pulling them into their game. As they played together on the lawn, Olivia felt her heart overflow with happiness. The fear and uncertainty that had marked the beginning of their journey seemed like distant memories now. In their place was something beautiful, a family built on love, trust, and shared experiences. "I never thought I could have this," Jackson admitted later, as they sat on the porch swing watching the sunset. The twins had tired themselves out and were curled up between them, their peaceful faces glowing in the golden light. A real family, unconditional love, happiness without strings attached. Olivia reached across the sleeping children to take his hand. "We built this together," she said softly, every step of the way. Hand in hand, they sat together, their hearts full of gratitude for the life they'd created. The future stretched before them like an open road, full of possibilities and promise. They had faced darkness together and emerged stronger, their bond unbreakable, their love deeper than ever. The twins stirred slightly in their sleep, and both Olivia and Jackson instinctively moved to comfort them. In that simple gesture was everything they had become: parents, partners, protectors. Their family was their greatest achievement, built not on wealth or power, but on love, trust, and unwavering dedication to each other. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across their peaceful home, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as a family united by love and strengthened by hope. Thank you for being here. If something in this story stayed with you, I'd love to see you again. Subscribe, and tomorrow I'll bring you another story crafted with heart.